Hello and welcome back. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. For this week's video, I made and canned chicken soup. I'm starting with a 12-quart pot and the bones, skin, and leftover meat from 2 roast chickens saved in the freezer. Then I'm going to add water into the pot is roughly 3/4 full. If I were just making broth, I would cut the vegetables more roughly, but in this case I intend to keep the veggies and meat in the final product, so I'm chopping them uniformly. I chopped 5 carrots and added them to the pot. Next are 3 stalks of celery. In they go! And the final ingredient is a full onion, chopped finely so it basically cooks straight into the broth. Boop! Bring the pot to a boil, lower the heat to a simmer, and set your timer. I like to leave my soup for roughly 3 hours or until it's cooked down about 1/4. Here we can see I misjudged the size of bowl I'd need for my strainer to fit. Let's try that again. Much better. Now we're going to strain the broth to make it easier to load up our jars. I like to dump the solids into the strainer to make it easier to pick out all the bones from the meat and veggies we want to keep. And this is where that strainer comes in handy. I'm carefully draining the broth off the solids and moving them to the side to sort through in a minute. Of course, the dogs had to inspect my work so far. This is our Great Pyrenees, Bjorn. Once he had signed off on the quality of my process, I moved to filling the jars about half full with broth. One of the other dogs then had to come and check and make sure everything looked good too. Now this step is fully optional. If you're looking to just keep the broth, my recipe made 2 full quart jars and 1 pint. But like I mentioned earlier, I wanted to keep the veggies and leftover meat, so I risked the skin on my fingers and picked through the solids for all the stuff I wanted to keep in the soup. When it was all said and done, it made exactly 4 quarts of soup. We're getting close to putting these guys in the pressure canner. I wiped the tops of the jars with a clean, damp paper towel. Placed the lids and screwed on the rims finger tight. Now they're ready to go into the pot. With chicken soup, it needs to process in the pressure canner for 90 minutes. Make sure none of your jars are touching. There are 2 inches of water over the top of the jars, and be careful of steam. When the 90 minutes are up, turn off the heat and allow your pressure canner to return to 0. I left it alone for close to an hour before I removed the canning weight and until the lock released before removing the lid. Once the lid is off, it is now safe to use your jar lifter and take out the jars to cool and complete the seal. As your jars cool, you should hear a pop. That indicates you have a good seal. Any jars that don't seal will need to be kept in the fridge and used quickly before the contents go bad. And the process is done. Be sure to admire your beautiful jars of soup before tucking them into the pantry. Thank you so much for watching. You can find the recipe and steps for this video on my blog. I'll leave a link down below. See you next week.